Well, what's up, future millionaires? It's Mike the Investor. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about a few key details regarding a Bitcoin ETF. Now, before we dive into it, definitely take advantage of grabbing some free Bitcoin by using the Voyager and BlockFi link down below. But enough talking, let's jump into it. Alright, crypto investors, welcome back to the channel. Now this video is broken down into a few different sections, so there are timestamps down below if you do want to look at some specific parts in this video. Now the first part we're going to dive into, this is going to break down just the few key details regarding the SEC approval of the Bitcoin ETF for Revolution companies. And then the second part of this video we're going to dive into, it's going to talk about how the Bitcoin market has kind of soared based off of the rumors of the Bitcoin futures ETF that should be going live October 18th. But the main thing I want to show you is how the actual Bitcoin and the entire crypto market has performed after key events have happened and launched, and we're going to be diving into that. But before we do, this video is brought to you by Market Rebellion, a platform where you can enhance your overall fundamentals on technical analysis, and this will help us as investors with better buying opportunities when buying crypto and better selling opportunities when we're looking to exit crypto. And so if that sounds good to you, click the Market Rebellion link down below and you'll get $25 off your first month when signing up. But enough talking about that, let's dive into the first part of this video. Alright investors, so for the headline, we can see the SEC approves an ETF for Bitcoin Revolution companies. Portfolio includes Tesla and Twitter, and you can see this came out October 7th 2021. So let's go ahead and scroll down and look at the key parts of this. And so we can see that the approving of a fund called the Volt Bitcoin Revolution ETF was done by the Securities and Exchange Commission, also known as the SEC. Now, the fund will provide retail investors with exposure to Bitcoin by creating a portfolio of Bitcoin Revolution companies that hold a significant amount of cryptocurrency on their balance sheets. So you can see this is a indirect exposure ETF. And so we can see that Volt said that 25% of the fund's assets will be made up of the stock and micro strategy, but he also said that the percentage could be slightly lower when the fund, which would trade under the ticker symbol BTCR, is listed on the New York Stock Exchange in the next few weeks. Now the last pieces of this article are these two key statements here. We can see that the fund will consist of shares in approximately 30 companies, including Tesla, Square, Coinbase, and PayPal. And they also are getting Bitcoin companies like Marathon that also hold cryptocurrency in their corporate treasuries. So we can see that this is a indirect, exposure to Bitcoin. And so now let's dive into the second and the main part, of this video. And this is going to break down kind of how things have performed over the last two major events that's happened in the crypto market, which is back in 2017 when CME launched, which was Bitcoin futures, and then this year when Coinbase became, a public traded company. Let's check it out. Alright investors, so the headline of this article says Bitcoin ETF could tank the crypto prices, and this is coming from Pantera Capital CEO Dan Morehead. And so let's go ahead and move on down. Before we do that, as you can see, the article came out October 11th 2021. Alright, and so let's move down so we can see that Dan Morehead, the CEO of Pantera Capital, is confident that the crypto market has entered a new bull cycle. However, he also warned that a potential launch of a Bitcoin ETF, also known as a exchange traded fund, could put a damper on the latest run up. So let's go ahead and move on down a little bit and see what he's talking about. And so Bitcoin has been on the rise since October, gaining 17.3% in value over the last week. Now, this is just 12.6% away from Bitcoin's all-time high of $64,804 recorded in April this year. Now, with many investors and analysts expecting a strong Q4 for the leading cryptocurrency, there is one possible event that could reverse the uptrend, and somewhat surprisingly, he points to the launch of the Bitcoin ETF. But it gets better, and we're going to actually see what he he's talking about. And so what is a Bitcoin ETF? Here's a quick education if you're just, unaware of what this is. An ETF is a publicly traded investment tool that tracks the price of an underlying asset. Now, a pure Bitcoin ETF would track the value of Bitcoin, offering investors access to the world's largest cryptocurrency without the need to physically buy and store the actual asset. Well, we have yet to actually have a pure Bitcoin ETF launched in the US. However, we do have the Bitcoin futures that is rumored to launch on October 18th, which is the closest thing yet to getting exposure to Bitcoin by a ETF. And so let's continue to read. And so we can see that Bitcoin ETFs are available to investors in other countries like Canada, Brazil, and Dubai, but the US SEC has rejected every single application. But we can see that things have changed since then as we looked at the first article, and also how we are rumored to have a Bitcoin futures ETF. And so let's move down to the last few parts of this. And so Moorhead recalled that two high-profile events in the past, both of which, despite bullish expectations, resulted in lengthy bear market cycles, with Bitcoin plummeting about 83% and 53% respectively. And so will history repeat itself? In some form or fashion, history typically does. So this is where things get interesting. And so there was a launch of Bitcoin futures, the CME, in December 2017. And everyone was like, we're going to the moon, of course, because it's bullish news, right? And so we can see the market did rally over 2,400% until the very day futures listed. That was the top. And so one of the 83% bear markets started that day, said Pantera Capital CEO. And then next, earlier this year, that cycle was repeated, and that occasion was on Coinbase, the US leading crypto exchange going public via direct listing. The Bitcoin market was up 822% coming into the day of the listing. However, it immediately after the Coinbase stock became available on the NASDAQ, there was a 53% bear market started. And so with this in mind, he suggests the same could happen once a Bitcoin ETF is approved. And so by identifying those two key events that triggered the market going to the downside, I think that is very key for us to be aware of, as investors, because before reading this article, I honestly didn't even realize, that happened. And so that's very key to understand. Now, keep in mind, I still believe that Bitcoin, a pure ETF, is bullish for the overall crypto market and Bitcoin. Now, in the short term, is yet to see what will happen. But there was one last section I want to show you in this article. So as I move down, here it is. We can see that Bitcoin latest rally is partially due to the rumors that the SEC will approve a Bitcoin ETF on October 18th, which is a Bitcoin futures ETF proposed by ProShares ETFs and not the one that tracks Bitcoin spot market. So I just wanted to show you that last key part, on that article, just so you can see, reasons why, Bitcoin has started to move up. And so what are my thoughts, on this article? I believe it's something to definitely keep in the back of your mind and something to be aware of. And also, he also mentioned, I don't think I showed it in the article, but he said you may potentially, if history repeats itself, maybe go ahead and take a little profit off the top before the day of the actual Bitcoin ETF listing. Now, we don't know what's going to happen, but based off of history, the market has declined twice off of two main events that's happened in the crypto market. The CME back in 2017, Bitcoin futures, and then earlier this year when Coinbase got listed, for the US. So these are two major events. Definitely was bullish, and we all expected the market to go extremely higher, but it reversed. And so this is key information for us as investors to be aware of. Okay, so the question is a Bitcoin ETF good or bad for the short term? Based off of history, we could see a potential decline, but everyone is expecting an extreme bullish run, just like we expected the CME, just like we expected as well with Coinbase. Now, this could definitely be different because it's not guaranteed that the market will decline, but at some point, what comes up must come down. And so my thoughts on an entire scale for a Bitcoin ETF, long term is bullish for Bitcoin and the overall crypto market, hands down. Now, for the short term, I don't know what's going to happen because we still have other variables as well that can, move the market down. But overall, things are looking bullish. And at the time of this video, Bitcoin has retraced to around the 57.5 or more, gaining more market share, which is what we need to see from Bitcoin to take the overall market higher into new all-time highs. And so my thought is, I think a Bitcoin ETF, rather it's an indirect, rather it's a Bitcoin futures, I think in the long term it's bullish because all of those ETFs are doing their part in bringing awareness in, rather it's direct or indirect exposure to Bitcoin and the crypto space. So in the long term, I think it's bullish. In the short term, it is yet to see what will happen. But if you gain some value from this video and you learn something, most importantly, definitely smash that like button. Also share this video out with someone you know. If you haven't connected with me on my social platforms on Twitter or Instagram, definitely consider connecting with me at Mike the Investor, and also be mindful of all of these spam accounts. They will add you and act like they're me, so please be careful. But that's all I got for you. Remember to stay inspired, stay motivated, always invest in yourself, and I'm out.